Welcome back to Encouraging Things. A little while ago, Bill from Bill Making Stuff created the Big Bot Bash Challenge. The idea of which is you use the rulebook from Bangarang in the Gutterlands. And in the rulebook, on the very last page, you'll find a list of items. And with those items, you roll a d20. And each number on that d20 gives you an option for your Big Bot Bash to Kitbash a bot. And I decided I wanted to join in on this challenge because I like challenges that have set rules. And I will really want to get into Kitbash. And I think this was a really good way to do that. Unfortunately, I don't have any d20. Now I could go out and buy some, but instead I decided to write my own via code. And so I give you the Bot Bash generator. And it is random. I did test it a couple of times to make sure it worked, but the roll that you see here is the one that I went with. The core piece to this figure is going to be this little guy from Buzz Lightyear, and the reason I chose him is because it sticks with the flavor text of Cosmic, as he is an astronaut, and I would believe that astronauts would find their way to the Gutterlands whether they wanted to or not. In this case, the story of this little guy is that he was exploring the Gutterlands, and he fell in a hole. And when he was in that hole, something found him. Something hungry. And curious. Now, the creature that found him wasn't evil, and the astronaut had long expired from his injuries. But as the creature entered the suit, it began to feed. It started to change. I wanted this figure to be more organic than mechanical. And so for that, I utilized the Crayola model magic I found at the Dollar Tree. Having never used this material before and having never seen it used, I wasn't sure how it would work out when it dried. But because it air dried, and because I was going to have plastic bits in it, it worked out better than Sculpey because I couldn't bake it. Now, the creature having had its fill of dead astronaut, it began to grow inside the suit, and very quickly ran out of room. And so because of that, it had to break through and crack open the shell. But in doing so, the shell got stuck in its skin and became part of the creature. And this made the creature less mobile, less able to find food and to feed. And so, as all creatures do, it began to evolve. With the shell of the spacesuit around the creature, it was unable to eat the way it used to. Rather than wrapping around an object and absorbing it, it needed a mouth. And it needed teeth. Having feasted on the flesh and the blood of the astronaut, the bone was another matter. The creature couldn't eat bone, couldn't eat calcium, rock, inorganic, non-metallic, tasteless. But it could use the bone, shape it, form it, make it into what it needed. When the astronaut fell into the hole, the creature felt it, the vibrations of the impact coursing along its skin. But now with the shell, with the mouth, with the teeth, it couldn't feel as far, couldn't find food at a distance. So it needed eyes. But it's dark in the pit, it's hard to see. It needs large eyes, more eyes. But how many? Having never worked with a model magic clay before, I was uncertain how well it would take shapes. But I was surprised to find that even though it was a soft, foamy texture, by pressing a little bit more firmly than I would with normal clay, it would take a softer edge to what would normally be a hard push with a silicone tool. And because of that, it actually kept a really, really good shape and didn't require as much smoothing as it would smooth itself out. But I did have to make sure that the pressure from my tool was hard enough to push into the material for when it expanded back out. Now with a hard shell, eyes to see and a mouth to devour, the creature found itself immobile, unable to squirm and slither as it once did. Now it needed arms. Arms to grasp, to crawl, and to climb. For the purposes of the build, Mr. Tickle is, I believe, a British cartoon character that has very long, wiggly arms, almost like tentacles. And I decided to just go with long arms that were more solid for the creature, as it would double as a stand. Even after it dried, the Model Magic clay still had a little bit of give to it, and with firm, solid, even pressure, you can press items into it. You do just have to be careful that you don't crack it, as it is dried out and doesn't expand quite as well. For the eyes, I rolled 3x3 eyes. And the only thing that really came to mind for that was 3 eyes in 3 different places. So I had a large bulbous eye in the middle. I wanted to place 2 smaller eyes in different locations. Now for this part of the video, I am showing what I initially did for one of the eyes, the one in the chest piece. Now with this first design for the second eye, when it was finished, I wasn't really happy with it. I felt that if there was an eye in the chest piece, it would be level with the chest piece. And so the eye that I have here that I finished and was able to record looks more like a mushroom that's poking out or bulging out. And I felt that an eye that was more inside the socket would be better, even though it would be harder to make. And although I was able to create that eye, I was not able to record it. A lot of this build ended up being outside my comfort zone with regards to my skills as a kitbasher and as a modeler. And since I had decided to go with a body horror style of design, similar to what Dan does, I wanted something tentacle. And for that I decided for the third eye, I would have it on the end of a tentacle. Now for that design, all I did was take some of the floral wire that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I created basically a tree or an armature with it. And I took more of the Model Magic and I put that over that armature and then wrapped it around a ball that represented the third eye. Along with the tentacle, I created a base for the creature, which included the hip joints from the skeleton to show that it had not created legs along with its arms, and it would have to drag itself along the ground. This was to coincide with the stubby legs that I was required to have on my bot. In order to simulate skin on the creature, I used regular tissue paper, then applied it with Mod Podge. This is also a technique I've never used before. In fact, there were so many techniques that I used on this build that I've never done before, that each step felt like I could either make the entire build better, or absolutely destroy it. And the closer I got to the end, the worse that sensation became. However, each time I completed a task and took a look at what I'd made, it looked good. Even if it wasn't perfect, the imperfections that were in it helped make it look more realistic. Now the creature had a mouth, it had eyes, and it had arms, and it could climb out of the pit. So it made its way to the surface. And while it was there, it began to remember. It remembered having legs. It remembered having arms and eyes. It remembered the astronaut and his explorations. And in those memories, it remembered a place. Another pit. A pit of rest. And it knew it needed to go to this rest pit. Find others of its kind. One of the biggest struggles I have when it comes to any project is as I come to the completion of that project, I don't finish it with all the details that I originally started with. I will tend to leave things on the table if I feel like it takes too much time in order to put them on, or I'll get excited about where the project has gotten to and I'll stop. With this particular project, I wanted to keep going and do more than what I had originally started with. And although the creature looked really great when it was finished and painted, there were some features that I really wanted to add to it. One of those was to add detail to the shield, or the helmet. I figured if something were to be eaten, it would fight back. And so I put some damaging marks around the helmet where it goes over the mouth. One important thing that I could have left off that I really wanted to include was the shininess of the creature's flesh. The matte finish that I had originally looked good, but I felt that making the skin shiny while keeping the metallic bits dull would add more detail to the creature and more realism. In order to do that, I used a floor wax in order to paint it on. And although I was concerned that there would be some yellowing, it did turn out rather fine. Along with that, I had looked up how to do gore, because I felt that the arms weren't really connected to the body as much as they were placed into the body. And from that, I found out that there are certain types of glue one can use in order to create stringy, gore-like substance, or saliva. Now, the glue that most people offer up is called Uhu, and I don't have any of that. But I do have Shugu, which has a similar consistency, and I was able to utilize that in order to create a gore-like substance on the body. So how did it turn out? I think it's fantastic. All the new techniques I got to use, everything I got to do to make it, and then the way it looks at the end are all fantastic. I'm really happy to have been part of the Big Bot Bash, even though I'm a little late, and technically I wasn't invited. But I think when Bill put the Big Bash out there for everybody, he put it out there so that people would be prompted to make something. So in that same vein, I want to encourage you to go download Bangerangs in the Gutterland, absolutely free, the link will be in the description, to roll some d20, or get the numbers however you decide, and make yourself a bot for the Big Bot Bash, and see what you come up with. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.